Imagine waking up tomorrow to find that the cash in your wallet has been reduced to worthless pieces of paper. You find the bank doors chained shut, your accounts are totally frozen, your debit card is useless, and every single digital cent you own is suddenly inaccessible. This is the zero GDP state, a moment where every gear in the national engine of commerce and production stops turning at once. Financial freezes of this scale occur when a country's debt becomes unsustainable, or when international sanctions sever its connection to the global market. When a nation's economy flatlines this completely, the traditional rules of banking and recovery no longer apply. Most people assume that international institutions like the IMF will simply step in with a bailout package to keep the lights on. This chart tracks foreign aid flooding a collapsed economy. While capital arrives quickly, it creates a paradox. As free imports meet immediate needs, domestic industrial output plummets. With endless free goods from abroad, the incentive to rebuild local factories vanishes. This total reliance on outside entities can trap a nation in a cycle of poverty, where it consumes but no longer produces. Escaping this cycle requires a painful pivot away from external charity and toward total self-reliance. In 1994, Rwanda faced the total collapse of its societal and economic foundation, providing a case study in how to rebuild from absolute zero. The speed of the destruction was nearly total. The nation lost half of its entire GDP in a single summer. Infrastructure was non-existent. Power grids were dark, logistics networks were shattered, and there was no functional foundation left to support a recovery. With no functional government institutions and no active trade partners, the country was effectively isolated from the world economy. With no remaining safety net, the nation was forced to execute a survival plan that prioritized internal production over outside help. The government made the choice to reject long-term dependency on aid, opting instead to build a path toward financial independence. They immediately restricted non-essential imports, forcing the domestic population to manufacture the goods they could no longer buy from abroad. Without natural resources to export, they invested heavily in human capital, training the youth in digital labor to create a service-based economy. Workers were mobilized into new, localized production lines, replacing international supply chains with domestic alternatives. To protect this new growth, the state implemented strict anti-corruption laws to ensure that every cent of capital stayed within the national borders. This strategy demanded years of public sacrifice, as resources were diverted away from consumption and back into industrial reinvestment. This discipline eventually turned the nation into one of the fastest-growing economies in the world. The transformation shows that a durable recovery is possible when a nation prioritizes self-sustaining production over the temporary relief of external aid. But what happens if this collapse scenario strikes a major superpower like India or the United States? Sovereign debt is currently at record highs, while global trade stability is declining, creating a precarious environment for the world's largest economies. If an economy of this size crashes, there is no international body capable of providing a bailout. The scale is simply too large for the rest of the world to absorb. In a collapse, even a superpower would be forced to adopt the same grueling self-reliance playbook used by smaller nations. Domestic interventions would be immediate. Personal bank assets would be frozen to stop capital flight, effectively locking citizens out of their wealth. Governments would have to mobilize the civilian workforce to replace the global supply chains that have been severed. There are no shortcuts in this process. Recovery requires years of financial austerity and a fundamental shift in how the population lives. Rebuilding an economy from zero is a matter of survival, not politics. The question is whether a modern society has the discipline to endure the hardest reset imaginable.